Have you ever opened an Access file and saw all the things on the left and was like, what in the world is going on? Well, you're in luck. Today we're going to use Excel tables to explain it all. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Go. Today I'm going to teach you first a brief introduction to Excel tables. If you've never used them, you'll see why they can be very useful. Second, I'm going to use those Excel tables and what we do in Excel to teach you how to understand the Access interface. When you see all those things over on the left, you'll understand what they are. If you find this useful, select that like button below, give a thumbs up, leave a comment if you have a question or a concern, or you want to see a special video. I monitor all comments. Let's get started. So the reason I'm making this video is a couple of weeks ago, my coworker came to me and he was watching my computer screen, and I opened one of the databases I manage for our organization, and he said, "See, that confuses me." And I said, "What confuses you?" And he said, "All that stuff on the left, I don't know what that is." Now, this guy knows how to do Excel, taught himself how to do tables and formulas, etc., but he had no idea what he was looking at when he saw the Access interface. And so I decided to make this video, A, to teach you something about tables if you don't know, and B, I'll teach you how to translate this knowledge into Access. Now, of course, this is just an introductory. It gets way more complex, but you won't be so afraid to see Access. You will see, oh, okay, I can do this in Excel, and this is how I would do the same thing in Access. Okay, so the first thing to recognize is I have this table over here in Excel. Now, you may not know it's a table unless you see this little mark, or maybe you see the border around it, but a table is something special in Excel. It's not just some rows and columns. To make a table, all you would have to do is highlight something, hit Control-T on your keyboard. Now, I've already done that for this table, so there's already something here. So anytime I click in this table, I have this new tab at the top on the ribbon, Table Design, so I can do some different things. Now, within this table, we have a column called Invoice Number, Price Each, and Number. Now, the first thing I want you to recognize is typically, if you did not have this table and you wanted to calculate price each and number, so you would probably put a formula in something like B2 equals, you put a formula in here, equals B2 times C2, and then you would duplicate that formula all the way down. With a table, you don't have to do that. What you can do is what's called structured table references, I believe. Now notice this, in this column, notice this formula right here. This is an interesting thing. So what I have done is in this formula, I had said equals at, which means this particular row. You can start this formula in any row in the table, at price each times at number. And what it will do is it will automatically fill this table, and now, or this column rather, and now what's really cool is if I do a test row and I say, okay, this was a $500 item, let's make it a $5 item, 12. This will continue on, this formula. You don't have to keep extending the formula, etc., as you do with some other kind of column and row setup. So the table is very interesting because now we can do some very interesting things with it. So for now, this is the basic table. We have our columns. Now let's pretend we are super strict Excel users and we only do one thing per worksheet. So notice, let's go back to our monitor here. We have just table invoices on our first worksheet. We decide to go to a different worksheet. Well, what's so special about this? Look at this. Instead of copying and pasting the table, what I am able to do is on this first column here, say equals table invoices, and I will spill out what is in this table. And guess what? If I go to update the table and test row 2, and I do some things in here, and I go over here, look, it appears automatically. That's because it's a reference to the table invoices. And here is the formula that is sitting right here. Equal table invoices. Super, super easy. This is kind of useful, but this is just duplicating what's in table invoices. Now, what if we wanted to know what was in the table invoices of any item that was above $15 each? So how would I do that? Well, I would do an if statement. So again, I have my second worksheet because I'm a very structured Excel person. And so I say, okay, if table invoices price each is greater than 15, give me table invoices, otherwise give me blank. And we get this right here. Now notice I do not get the headers like I do when I make the table. So when you make a table, typically you can tell it, okay, I have headers. You can name the headers, etc. Here, I did not get the headers. I only get the data, but this is table invoices. Now these, I manually colored these here, so These are still part of the table, as you can see. You can see the border here. So you can see these are the items that are above $15 each. And if we go to this table, we would see, okay, we should see 434, ANA, where's the other one? Oh, and 65DZ. 434 ANA 65DZ. So these are listing the items that are, that are above $15 each. Now, let's do another trick. We start another tab. What if I only wanted a couple of columns from the table? Same thing though, items that are above $15. Here's what that formula would look like. If table invoices prices each is greater than $15, table invoices prices each colon, table invoices invoice. Now there is a special character here because I think the pound sign is a special character in table references. So that's trapping that pound sign, or blank. So you'll notice in this result, I only get 2 columns. In this result, I got 4 columns, the entire table. Whereas here, I said, just give me price each to invoice number, which is a range. I don't know exactly how to do the formula for this to get, let's say I wanted the first and last. I don't know how exactly to do that. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I don't know how to do it, but I'm just showing you an example of what you can use on these table formulas. And now let's make this a little more useful. Let's go to another one and we add manual headers. So these are not part of the table. And then we just add a filter. So we sit here and we have filtered by, we do not show the blanks. We hit OK, and those are our results. And I've called this, okay, give me the results of greater than 15. So as you can see, we can have this table of data over in Excel that is containing all these numbers, and it remains structured. And then we can reference that table in multiple ways, whether just grab the whole table like this did, or just grab all items that are above $15 each, or then we can filter it out and make it really pretty. And anytime changes are made to this table, the changes will reflect because these things are referencing that table. Now let's jump over to our Access and we'll see how these objects on the left translate to our different worksheets that were on the bottom of our Excel. So here we are in Access, and look at our multiple items over here on the left. We have it grouped by what kind of things they are: tables, queries, forms. Don't worry if you don't know what those are. Let's start with a table because we've already made a table in Excel. So what I did in Access is I just imported that table from Excel. Now you'll notice I do not have a totals column here. I do not have a total price here. Why is that? We have to realize when we're talking about databases, we could be talking about millions and millions of rows, and it's a waste of space, of storage space, to actually store what we can calculate when we access that table. That's why we don't have that totals table. So let's go back over to Access. So very quickly, we have invoice number, price each, and number. Really easy, very similar to our Excel table. What can we do with this? Well, we can make a query which is very similar to what we did in Excel. So let me open the design of this query. I went to Design, Query Designer, and all I did is I brought in table invoices. I said I want the star means all of the fields from the table, and then I made myself a total calculated field, basically. Total equals numbers times price each, and I even did something silly where I doubled total. And now check it out. You'll notice this looks very similar to our table in Excel because it's giving the same data. However, here is one of the major differences. Let's go back to Excel. If I'm looking at this table, this reference of this table, and I attempt to change something here, I am going to get an error message. It is going to give me a spiel error message because I cannot edit the reference to the table. I must go to the table and then edit it there, and then the changes will show up here. However, in Access, depending on the type of query you have, you can directly edit right from the query. I could say, okay, I had not 9, I had 99 of those. And it will update the table information from what you typed in the query, because the query can talk back depending on what type of query it is. Very important to remember. Okay, so that's easy enough. Let's look at this next thing. We look at, I made another query. Now check this out. What you can do in Access is you can reference other queries. So remember, my first query, I added those fields, total and total double. I added some calculated fields to that query that are not present in the actual data because I don't need to store these. These can be calculated each time I want to save space on my table. Here, I've made a query that references that query. I bring in all the fields, and then I give it a criteria, greater than $15 on the price each. This is very similar to when we were in Excel and we did this. Pull in that table, greater than 15. That's all I want. However, there's a big difference here. When I run this, I don't get all those extra rows. I only get the rows that match the criterion of greater than $15 each. Pretty spiffy, huh? And it's kind of interesting how I'm not referring to the table, even though I could if I wanted to. I've already made a query that basically gives me the table with the calculated sums. I'm going to now use a query that refers to that query. You can do that as many times as you want in Access or pretty much any database program. Pretty neat, huh? Now what about that part where we just wanted maybe 2 columns out of the table above the $15? So how do we replicate this one? We wanted 2 columns just showing the items that are above $15 each. Well, here is what I did in Access. I made another query. This time I'm looking at just table invoices. I could easily look at query table invoices, but I chose to look at just the table. And here I selected each column. Instead of using star, which is grab all the columns, I just double-clicked each one and I said, give me price, give me invoice, oh, and it's above $15. Now notice the slight difference here between this one and this query here. Here I uncheck the show, so this is just a parameter, or sorry, not a parameter, this is a criterion. Only show the ones above 15, but don't show them. And I did that because I'm already showing that field from the star selection. Here I'm not using star, so I kept it visible. We run it, and there we have it. We have price each and invoice. That's the only 2 things we're looking at. So you may be saying, if you're an Excel user, well, big deal. You've basically done some things that you can in Excel, but maybe you have a little bit of an advantage with the queries, you have to admit. Now, look at the left side of the screen over here. I have forms. This is where we start to get into some good stuff. So what do you mean by this? Well, forms in Excel, you do have forms if you use VBA, but they're not very good. They're kind of old. So your interface is mostly your worksheets here, and Access is way different. So here I have made a form that uses as its source of data the query table invoices, and I made it very pretty. So as you can see on the screen over here, and check it out, I was also able to lock the form so that users cannot edit the data. I could easily unlock it and allow them to add rows, but in this case I've said, nope, I want a form that only shows them all of the invoices, and I don't want them to edit it. So maybe I could give them a print button, I could make a report, etc. Maybe this is just really pretty to see. And then I've added a button to the form that says, okay, you can toggle between seeing all invoices and seeing ones that are above $15. And when I hit that button, that's what I'm able to do in Access. I'm able to make great interfaces to that data. I can lock the data, I can lock certain fields, I can do all this good stuff in VBA to determine what you can do as a user. Some users may be able to add rows, some may be able to delete rows, some may not be able to do anything, etc. Now we haven't even gotten into reports. I won't do that. I just wanted to make this very short video so that you guys could compare. If you did this in Excel where you were very strict and you used the individual worksheets to give you results pointing back to a table, how would you do that in Access? And you can see it's actually not too hard. Thanks so much for joining. God bless. I hope you have a great day. If there's anything you want to see, comment below. Have a great day.